Have you ever stopped and wondered what happens when music becomes more than just music? Not a hit song, not a viral moment, but something so important, it gets preserved forever. Because this week, 4 legendary artists officially crossed into history: Beyoncé, Taylor Swift, Chaka Khan, and Vince Gill. Their recordings were selected for the National Recording Registry inside the Library of Congress. And what that actually means is much bigger than most people realize. Because this isn't an award show. It's not about streaming numbers. It's not even about popularity. The National Recording Registry only preserves recordings considered culturally, historically, or aesthetically important enough to survive forever. That means decades from now, these songs will still exist as protected pieces of American history. And honestly, that changes the way people look at music. Because suddenly, songs you listen to in your bedroom, on road trips, during heartbreaks, are no longer just memories. They're history now. But what made these artists worthy of that kind of legacy? Well, that's where the story gets interesting. Let's start with Beyoncé. Long before she became a global icon, she was known for one thing behind the scenes: perfection. Producers who worked with her early in her career said she would repeat takes over and over again, not because they sounded bad, but because she believed emotion could always be stronger. And over time, her music stopped sounding temporary. It started sounding timeless. Songs like Crazy in Love, and albums like Dangerously in Love, didn't just dominate charts. They defined eras. Beyoncé became more than an artist. She became a cultural force. Her performances, visuals, and storytelling changed the entire direction of modern pop and R&B music. And now, that impact is officially part of American history. But then there's Taylor Swift. And her story is completely different. While many artists focused on image, Taylor built her career on emotional detail. Tiny details, phone calls, old memories, forgotten scarves, moments people thought only they understood. That's why millions connected to her music so deeply. Fans didn't feel like they were listening to a celebrity. They felt like someone was narrating their own lives back to them. And over the years, Taylor transformed songwriting into emotional storytelling for an entire generation. What makes her registry entry fascinating is this: she's still in the middle of her career. Usually, people associate historical preservation with artists from the distant past. But Taylor Swift becoming part of the registry while still dominating modern music shows just how massive her cultural impact already is. No one saw that coming this early. And then we get to Chaka Khan. Now this is where music history becomes impossible to ignore. Because before many modern pop stars ever stepped into a studio, Chaka Khan had already changed vocal performance forever. Her voice wasn't polished in a traditional way. It was powerful, fearless, alive. She brought emotional freedom into music in a way that inspired generations of singers after her. And the truth is, a lot of modern artists still carry pieces of Chaka Khan's influence today, whether they realize it or not. That's part of what the registry protects. Not just songs, influence, legacy, the sound that echoes through generations. And finally, Vince Gill. Maybe the quietest name on this list, but also one of the most respected. Vince Gill built his reputation through honesty. His music focused on heartbreak, family, regret, and emotional truth. And in country music, that kind of sincerity lasts forever. Fans trusted him. Other musicians respected him. And over time, his recordings became emotional snapshots of American life itself. That's exactly the kind of music the registry looks for. Not trends, truth. But what happened after the announcement may have been even more emotional than the induction itself. Social media exploded. Not with arguments about charts or awards, but with memories. People started sharing where they were when they first heard these songs. One woman said Beyoncé helped her survive a painful divorce. Another person remembered learning to drive while listening to Vince Gill with their father. Taylor Swift fans talked about growing up alongside her music. Older fans remembered dancing to Chaka Khan decades ago. And suddenly, this story became less about celebrities and more about people. Because music does something strange to human beings. It attaches itself to moments. A breakup, a wedding, a late-night drive, a funeral, a first love. And years later, one song can bring all of it back instantly. That's why preservation matters. Because the registry isn't just saving recordings. It's protecting emotional history. And maybe the most powerful part of this entire story is realizing how rare this honor really is. Thousands of recordings are nominated every year. Only a small number make it. Experts study cultural impact, historical importance, and long-term influence before choosing what deserves preservation. They ask one massive question. Will this recording still matter 100 years from now? That question changes everything. Because suddenly, fame isn't enough. The music has to mean something deeper. And somehow, all four of these artists achieve that in completely different ways. Beyoncé through artistic power. Taylor Swift through emotional storytelling. Chaka Khan through vocal influence. Vince Gill through sincerity and timeless songwriting. Different genres. Different generations. Same immortality. And maybe that's the real reason this story hit people emotionally. It reminded audiences how fast time moves. Songs that once felt new are now becoming historical artifacts. The soundtrack of people's lives is entering history books. And honestly, that realization feels surreal. Because one day, future generations may discover these recordings the same way people today discover legends from decades ago. That's the strange magic of music. Artists may age. Trends may disappear. But certain songs survive everything. And now, inside the protected archives of the Library of Congress, the voices of Beyoncé, Taylor Swift, Chaka Khan, and Vince Gill will continue surviving long after this moment passes. Long after headlines fade. Long after trends disappear. Their music remains. Forever.